Okay, John.
This is going on YouTube, sir.
Oh, yeah,
I know.
Yeah, it's awesome.
If we look at this, you got to remember, I'm behind the heart. This is the right side, this is the left side. Most of the time on the test, what happens is the students do it this way, and you mix up right and left. That's a major no-no. First thing I do is I name the big parts. This is the right atrium. This is the left atrium. This is the right ventricle. This is the left ventricle. This wall between the ventricles is the interventricular septum. It means the wall between the ventricles. This wall between the atria is the interatrial septum. Okay, interventricular septum, interatrial septum. This layer on the outside is the pericardium or the epicardium.
The whole layer?
Covers all of the outside. This part that's smooth is the myocardium. It's the muscle of the heart. And the inside, including the valves, is covered by the endocardium. So I have pericardium or epicardium, the myocardium, and the endocardium. All the blood in your body comes back to the right atrium. Comes back to the right atrium via the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, and the coronary sinus. It all comes right back to here. Now the space is the atrium. In a real heart, it lays on top of the ventricles like a balloon with no air. And then it fills up with blood. Well, this is the right auricle. Here's the left auricle. Auricle allows the atrium to expand. Then I look inside, see these muscles? This is pectinate muscles. 70% of the blood just drops into the right ventricle because of gravity. Pectinate muscle squeezes out the last 30%. It goes through this valve. This valve is the right atrioventricular valve, the right AV valve, or the tricuspid valve. It's got three little leaves, three little cusps. See the basketball net? That's the chordae tendineae. And it's attached to a little muscle right there, the red tip, called the papillary muscle. Papillary muscle holds the valve so it doesn't turn inside out. See all this bumpy meat? This is the trabeculae carneae. Where else did we see trabeculae?
In the bone.
In the bone, in the spongy bone. But there we just call it trabeculae. Here we call it trabeculae carneae because it's meaty. Blood drops into the right atrium, right ventricle, comes out this valve. This valve is the pulmonary semilunar valve, and it comes into the pulmonary trunk. This and these two blue ones right here are the only arteries in your body that carry deoxygenated blood. I'm warning you now, do not look at the color, you'll miss the question. Because you're used to blue as a vein. This is not a vein, this is an artery. It's the only artery in your body that carries deoxygenated blood. Blood came back from the body, it needs oxygen. Drops to the right ventricle, comes out the pulmonary semilunar to the pulmonary trunk, to the right and the left pulmonary arteries. It goes to the lungs and picks up oxygen. Comes back via the right and the left pulmonary veins. They're red because they picked up oxygen, and they're bringing it back to the left atrium. I need you to notice, I've got 2 pulmonary arteries. I've got 4 pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins come back to the right atrium. Again, I have the right auricle and I have the pectinate muscle. It's going to drop through this valve. This is the left atrioventricular valve, the left AV valve. It's also called the bicuspid because it has 2 flaps, 2 cusps. But if I turn it upside down, can you see the bishop's pointy hat? That's called a mitre. So this is called the mitral valve. So it's called the left AV valve, the left atrioventricular valve, the bicuspid valve, and the mitral valve. Drops through that mitral valve into the left ventricle. Still has the chordae tendineae, still has the papillary muscle, still has the trabeculae carneae. And way back here, can you see it way back there? There's a valve. Can you see it?
Is it white?
Way back there. That's the aortic semilunar valve. That blood is going out the aorta. Okay? Now, we're going to name the blood vessels right to left. Superior vena cava, aorta, and pulmonary trunk. Commonly, these are the two you screw up. You mix them. Go right to left. Superior vena cava, aorta, pulmonary trunk. Then I look at the aorta and I do this. Ascending aorta, aortic arch in the descending. Look. Ascending aorta, aortic arch in the descending aorta. Got it? If I say name this vessel, it's the aorta. If I say name this specific part, it's ascending aorta. Aortic arch and descending. Take your right hand and put it right here. This is the brachiocephalic trunk. Brachio means arm, cephalic means head. This one's going to split right away and take blood to the arm and the head. Brachiocephalic trunk. This one going up my neck is the left common carotid artery, and this one under the clavicle is the left subclavian artery. Brachiocephalic trunk, left common carotid artery, left subclavian artery. Okay? This is the apex, and this is the base. There's two kinds of cells in the heart. One is a contracting cell, and the other one is a conducting cell. It carries that message throughout the heart, telling it when to squeeze. Well, it starts, see that number, what's that? 32 right there? See the 32? It's defined as being right there where the superior vena cava comes into the right atrium. It is the sinoatrial node, or the SA node. It's also called the pacemaker because it sets the pace of the heartbeat. It sends that signal and it goes across both atria and it winds up right there where I have the number 36, which is defined as being right close to where the tricuspid valve exits the right atrium. So I went from the SA node to the AV node, and it's coming. There's a 100 millisecond delay, and then it comes right here. Here they show it here and here. It's really inside.